are you an atheist? If you're an atheist, then where does beauty come? I mean, I like to have those conversations, because if you're going to immerse yourself into something like this, there are going to be times that you're going to have, be on your knees and look up and ask the question. We all have to go have a vehicle for going inside.
What if story is the answer to our crises of meaning and belonging, to our impulse to heal our lives and help others, to our desire and drive to leave this world better than we found it? Now, we love good stories. In fact, we're kind of obsessed, not just with the stories themselves, but with the stories behind the stories. Their oddly perfect timing, the healing process they provoke in their authors, and their capacity to catalyze individual and collective change. And we love exploring these with writers, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, healers, parents, and others. Tune in to hear these stories behind the stories and entertain with us the real possibility that whether you are a teller or a consumer, story is always offering or leading us to an answer. When award-winning songwriter Lisa Arreguin decided to write a book, she found herself in uncharted territory and then a labyrinth, asking why she couldn't finish it. The path of writing and publishing was winding, but the outcome was the song of her life. Tune in to find out how Lisa learned the power of intention the hard way when winning a publishing prize. You'll also find out how she helps her clients and readers preserve and nurture their genius and not turn into a mad genius. And you'll find out how she intentionally cultivates her creativity and addresses her creative blocks. Grab a mug of something delicious and sip on some story and sanity with us. All right, welcome to Sips of Story and Sanity, where we talk about the stories behind the stories with authors, speakers, thought leaders, healers, creatives, parents, and more. My team, son Aaron.
Hello.
Sister Alyssa.
Hello, hello.
And clients turned friends, turned team members, Teddy.
Hi.
And Lori.
Hello.
We're all here to help me make sure that let's try that all over again. Blech. Okay. Unmute yourself so that you can do this thing at the right time.
I was caught off guard. I was like, I completely forgot.
A new thing. Okay, so we're gonna try.
Wait. Yeah, stop the recording, restart.
No. Welcome to Sips of Story and Sanity, where we talk about the stories behind the stories with authors, speakers, creatives, thought leaders, healers, parents, and others. My team, son Aaron.
Hello.
Sister Alyssa.
Hi.
And clients turned friends, turned team members, Teddy.
Hello.
And Lori.
Hi there.
Are all here to help me make sure that we get the most delicious sips of story and sanity out of this experience. So today we have Lisa Arreguin, who is a songwriting coach, a musical artist, and business entrepreneur. She is author of the book, The Crazybrave Songwriter, A Spiritual Guide to Creative Songwriting, and the critically acclaimed jazz album, Timeless. She holds a master's degree in psychology and is dedicated to working with musicians to blend solid songwriting technique with keen musicianship. Ooh, try saying that 3 times fast. I can't do that. And heartfelt expression. Lisa offers songwriting courses and educational pieces at livingcrazybrave.com. And along with her talented family, owns and operates Love and Laughter Music Group, a full service recording studio in the heart of Anaheim, California. Welcome, Lisa.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
So glad you're here.
Yes, me too.
Yes, we have known each other for a very long time, maybe lifetimes, but in this lifetime, I think we met in 2010. How did we meet? Do you remember what connected us?
That's a good question.
Was
how
it
we met.
Anthony?
I apologize for the phone too, by the way, over there. When did we meet? I'm not quite sure.
It was
I think I heard of
2010.
your name through someone else, and then I ended up at a retreat somehow,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, I think I met your sister first.
Oh yeah, that's right. Through my sister.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and then you came to an event,
Hmm.
and then you came to a retreat. And that retreat was like it was a very important retreat for me because I believe it was my very first one.
Hmm. Yes.
And no, wasn't the first one. Teddy's like, no, it wasn't the first one. It was the second one.
Hmm.
First one was important because Teddy fell on the ground in tears. That was the important part of the first one. The second one was important because you were there and we had the most amazing experience. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about like what brought you there. What was this idea for a book project that was bubbling? How long had it been bubbling by this point?
I had some vague idea that I wanted to write a book. Being a songwriter, it just dawned on me like years into writing that when you're a writer of anything, you're a writer. So somehow I thought I want to write screenplays, I want to write books, I want to do all these different things. But to write a book, I thought I really don't know what I'm doing. I wasn't an English major of any sort, so I don't know. So I tried to do it on my own, is what I recall. And being, you can't Google it. It doesn't work that way.
Find my book.
Yeah, right. And so I heard about you through my sister, and I said, let me just go to the retreat and see how this goes. And it was mind-boggling for me. It was mind-opening, expansion, all kinds of things, because what you were so clear at expressing was that the book is not an academic paper. It's not, it has a lot of heart. It should have a heart and come from your story. And then you are faced with this ominous task of putting your story inside of a book. And, I'm kind of an introspective person already. So I had kind of done a lot of my healing and therapy and all kinds of things through the years. But the idea of helping songwriters through my story was just such a disconnect. And so I had a light bulb moment in that retreat when you were sharing your introduction to the book you were crafting at the time. And then you just used the word hook. So the way you said something like, paraphrasing, something like, well, I hook readers in by doing this and this. And I go, oh, the hook. Well, there's a verse and a hook and a verse. And so it just kind of went, and it just kind of laid out in front of me like that.
Wait.
Yeah.
I have to tell people how this
Yes,
actually happened.
yes.
I decided to read, and I don't know what put this bug in my ear, but I decided to read my introduction that I was working on for Upside Down Mommy at the retreat as like, this is how we really engage readers at the beginning to show them the power of using story. And so I'm sitting there, everyone's eating their meal quietly, and I'm reading. And then all of a sudden, this lady who has been so quiet for the whole retreat, like she was engaged, but she's soft-spoken. And she just, you could tell she was like deeply thinking about all of the exercises. She jumps up from the table in the middle of breakfast and goes, oh, the hook. And then she leaves. And we're like, okay, we're just gonna finish reading and finish our breakfast. And I think we were there for maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes. And by the time we got back, magic had happened.
And I thought in that moment of time, I had all the answers. The answers I were looking for, it was all laid out in beautiful, Technicolor. But no, because by the time I got home, and then you start to go, okay, I got the structure of this. Because when you're writing songs, structure is an important part of putting the pieces together. I have a great structure, and I started smashing my story into this super complicated, long drawn out, ridiculous thing. I didn't know what to leave in. I didn't know what to leave out. So then I think I was back knocking on your door sometime later going, this ain't working, But interestingly enough, the structure actually did aid me in finishing the book in the final part of it. So yeah.
I just want to bring in, this is Teddy. for
did.
those listening. I just wanted to bring in that when we walked back into our guest house where we were staying, the words that you said still to this day give me chill bumps. You said, "My life is a song."
Yes, right.
And it was just
Right.
like, oh,
Yes.
I mean, I think we all felt it. It was
right.
just a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
It was
And
incredible.
the
The way that
song-
it laid out.
The songs that we love are really just, little snapshots of someone's life that seems to resonate for all of us. And those are the songs that stick and last. And, so yeah, that was the experience of the retreat.
Yeah.
It launched me. Yeah.
And it was an amazing moment for me because, like I said, the first retreat was all about realizing like this was not about just books. This was about the people writing the books and their healing process. But the second retreat really captured for me, and this is the part that I tell in our book, You Can't Make This Story Up, is that when I saw the way that the structure laid out for you, it did something inside me. Like, oh, it's like it was my first experience consciously with what I'm calling now the sacred code in people's stories. Like there's something that winds itself through your lifetime. Like how, that old saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's kind of like, what if your whole life has been about music and songs and you can actually see that when you look at the pattern of your life? Like it just blew my mind, and it changed the way that I looked at people's content. And it made me really dig in for the really unique superpowers. Like I was already doing that because that's part of, looking for someone's expertise. But when looking at branding and when looking at, how do we frame this to make it so memorable? Oh, it was a game changer for me. Absolute game changer. And definitely impacted all of my coaching from then on out. So we do this retreat. You have this incredible Labyrinth experience, which I love the Labyrinth. Would you mind talking about that a little bit? Because this is one piece of the in-person experience that I miss because of all the information we used to get out of it. Would you mind sharing?
So Amanda, in all her brilliance, decided to have all of us walk a labyrinth at, I don't know, it felt like midnight. It was probably 9 p.m. or something.
In the dark.
In the dark.
The dark.
In the dark. And a labyrinth, and it wasn't one of those slick labyrinths either, those kind that are on, concrete. It had rocks and, uneven surfaces in there. I remember standing at the front of the labyrinth, and we were instructed to ask ourselves a question. And my question was, why can't I finish this damn book? Which I figured was probably everybody's question to some degree.
Yep.
The Labyrinth had heard that question many times.
I think the Labyrinth must have. So I started to walk. And the weird thing about labyrinths, if you're walking with other people who are in intention for something, you see them out of the corner of your eye move this way, and then you see them move that way, and then you see them move this way, but we're all somehow making our way to the middle. And that was very important, I thought, because when you're on your journey of anything, you're not quite sure of your footing or where you are. But in all her brilliance, she just put butterflies that were lighted around the labyrinth, which was great because I was like, oh, I'm not going to fall on my face. There's a butterfly there. Let me keep moving around the labyrinth. But I think it was just a great metaphor for all the journeys, because they're not easy and you have to walk in the dark a lot. So, when I'm working with songwriters and they come, and whether they're fairly well established or have never written a song before, there's just this new journey, like you're on the boat in the ocean and you've got all your instruments set towards some course, but you're not quite sure how you're going to get there. And there's this darkness to it. There's, so I think it really stuck in my mind and really was something I always would come back to remember that even if you feel in the dark right now, and even if you don't know where you're going, there's a center to this, there's a core to this, you're going to arrive somewhere. And so, of course, when I did arrive at the middle of this labyrinth, the answer of why I haven't written the book is because I was scared. And I thought, well, this is the same thing I talk to, musicians about. Don't be scared, just, do it, But here I was completely frightened, and it was a very clear answer. And then I had to unwind back out of the labyrinth. So it was a great learning experience. I loved it. It was good.
It was, I'm telling you, the information that people would get while in there.
Yeah.
And the information that I would get, the coaching information, because people would go in there and get just lost. They would take the wrong path. They would go left instead of right because it was dark. And I didn't have the understanding then that new moon would be a hard time to do this because it's dark outside. Like we were in the middle of darkness and basically in the woods. And it was just, but I mean, people would go in and they would stay there for a really long time and everyone else would be waiting. And that's kind of what it's like to be in a group, right? When you're in a cohort and there's some people who are moving really fast and there are other people who kind of get stuck in the middle and are waiting longer for their answers, but they're part of this group. And so there was that dynamic. We had some people who, I think it was even at your event, I think it was Susan. Remember how she was like, screw it. And she just started jumping over the ledges. Like she was like, I am not walking out of this thing in the order. Like I'm just jumping out.
Right.
And all of that information was so good to have it reflected back to everybody, right? Like how we did that is how we go through the creative process. So thank you for sharing that. Cause that was it was a really important piece of that experience then. And I'm hard pressed in other environments to find ways for people to get that information from themselves instead of it being like me just reflecting back what I see. Cause that can always be second guessed, but when they get it from themselves, it's a little bit harder. So you go home, you start working on this, and you're trying to squeeze your story into this really cool framework and it's not working. And so I remember us meeting up, talking about it again still, and then other stuff happened in your life. Like, let's talk about some of the other things that were taking place behind the scenes, because that happens to a lot of folks where they think that, all the stuff going on back here has nothing to do with their project, but I think it did for you.
It did. At this 2012, my father died. 2015, I believe it is, my hip started around in there. My hip started to go out. And I thought, well, what's wrong with my hip? I'm fine. I walk and run and do things. And this was all the time when I was trying to put together the final pieces of the book. The way the story happened was I had set my sights on winning a Hay House contest. Hay House has always been a publisher I've read. There's Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson, all the spiritual folks. And so they were having a contest. So I put in my sights, and I did it very intentionally to see if this whole, woo-woo works. Does it work? If you really focus, vision board, do all these things you do, does it work? So I said, I'm going to win this thing. So part of this was that you had to fly to New York. You had to attend a conference. Only once you attended the conference could you apply, and you had to do a book proposal. And the book proposal, and then you could win the grand prize, first place, second place, third place. So I put on my vision board, I wanted to win first place. I get to New York, I find an editor over there, the second editor now that I've had on this thing. And I pay that money for that. It comes out good. I send it in. My hip's falling apart. I go to the surgeon who says to me, this was April of 2018. He said, you're going to have surgery. We're going to have to break the hip, put a new one in. And I came out of my doctor's appointment, sat in my car at Kaiser. The phone rang and they said, you won the grand prize. So I started crying and my hip was aching. And I was like, this is so weird that you can have opposites happen in your life at the same moment. I thought that was just so weird. But here's the catch of the whole thing to me, is that she said, you're the grand prize winner. And I was like, oh my God. And she goes, can you hold on a moment? And I said, sure. And the phone went silent. She comes back. She goes, I'm so sorry. You won first place, not grand prize. I really apologize. And I thought, okay, well, here's the irony. In my head, I wanted to win grand prize, but on my vision board, it said first place.
Oop.
So even they were confused about the intention I had set. But I think what still sort of perplexes me is in life, when you are going for those things that are so important to you, that you set your sights on, they come from the core of who you are. You really want to accomplish these things. Great contrast comes in your life really the potential of knocking you off center is so much there.
Yeah.
So, the sitting in a chair, riding with my hip hurting in a bad chair, and that all happened at the same time. So, I think the journey that's part of the journey, is standing up and having a sense of tenacity, self-worth, vision, focus, because no matter what's happening, you can still continue, even though it's going to throw you off a little bit. But that was my crazy story about that.
Yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't believe when you called me and told me
I was
all
like,
of that had happened, and then it was kind of down to the wire as far as getting all the content put in the right places.
right.
And
It sure was, yeah.
but I think that one of the things that I've loved about working with you is hearing some of the stories, and also some of the stories of how your creative processes have happened.
Mhm.
Like the really super inspired ones, and also the ones that have been kind of challenging and that you've watched other people go through. So I would love, like, your book opens with like the song that you got before it was needed or something. Would you tell people that? Because that story, it doesn't surprise me at all, but it still gives me goosebumps. It's just, I love that orchestration.
Synchronicity is part of the creative process. When you start to get into the minutia of getting something done that you love, you'll find you get support from the universe, from God, however you want to frame it. There's a bigger intelligence that's out before you and supporting you. So I was in the middle of writing my album. I had put all my money and time into this thing. I was pulling up to the ATM machine at Bank of America in the parking lot, and a song came to me with the words. And I thought, well, this is interesting. And since I was in a writing process a lot, I was really listening to anything that happened like that. So the full song came, and I pulled over and I wrote everything down quickly, and I sang it so I could remember it. The song was about suicide. And I thought, well, this is not a subject matter I'm going to use on my album for sure. Doesn't seem to fit even melodically everything else I'm doing. So I just kind of played with the song in my head for maybe a month. Then my producer, Joey, my husband now, that's another story, but he called and he said, oh, I have some people coming over today who are doing, they have a short film and they need music. And I said, oh, that's cool. Now I love movies like everybody else. So I was like, well, can I come over? I want to see what the deal is. So I get over there. There was a VCR at the time, into the machine. The first scene comes up and there's a candle that's lit. And the director says, we need a song here. And the camera panned around this girl's disheveled bedroom, back to her bed, where she was taking a handful of pills and preparing to commit suicide. And I started laughing. which is the appropriate response for suicide, right? So I started laughing to these strangers who thought I was crazy. And I said, well, I have the song written already. And Joey's like, what? I go, I have the song. The song is done already. So they allowed me to take that version home. I remember popping it in. And when the candle lit, I sang that song through the whole scene. And exactly at the point where it says, turn the water into, deliver me a sign, turn the water into wine, she was pouring the water into the glass to take the pills. So I said, well, my God, how did this happen? I wrote the song before the people came. So Joey was like, well, they have no money. They want 20 songs, you know, they need it yesterday. And I said, well, we have to do it. So we have to go in and cut this song for at least for that first scene. And so we did it like at 1 a.m, and we drove it out. These are the days before digital. So we drove it out to Burbank, and the music supervisor on the film called us the next day and said, how did you write a song so fast? I was like, because it was divine. So I think when we're in that creative space, certainly we're spanning dimensions, we're spanning all sorts of different things, you know? So I think it was, that was just a really amazing experience. And it reminded me that, you know, we're all supported. And that if when we are going for the passion and things that we love.
Yeah. Alyssa, were you saying something? You're muted.
Oh, I was just saying that's amazing.
So, I mean, you can't make that shit up, right?
Nope, you can't.
Has that
No.
has that happened to you more than just that time?
Because I always have my my observation eyes and awareness eyes open, I see so much. I'm like, well, you know, it can be a line in a movie, or my favorite thing is license plates. They talk to me actually, so I don't know.
Ooh, tell me more
Um,
about that. License plates talk to me. That is awesome.
They do. You know, people have their vanity plates and they all say, and so I'm always trying to decipher them. And sure enough, you're thinking of something or whatever. And there is just the other day I was walking and I was having a kind of a deep conversation with a friend, and I saw a license plate that said, trust God. And I thought, well, perfect. Thank you so much. So we really think we're alone, and we are not alone. We have a community of people here on earth, and we have a community of people in the celestial that are helping us, supporting us, and keeping us going in the right direction if we just are paying attention, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
They're paying attention. How do you maintain that focus then?
I think I'm kind of built for project to project thing working. So I understand now after so many projects, and I mean, when you go to school to get your degree, it's a project. You know, you have a beginning, they give you classes, you get a degree. So everything creatively to me is like that. So I think I'm expecting the crazy front, the messy middle, as Amanda talks about, and then going toward the end. So I just know, I know that I'm going to probably encounter certain things as I go, but it's about just some tenacity. And I want to get to the end, and I want to do the best job I can, whatever project I'm picking to do.
Was the book the hardest creative project that you've worked on? Because I mean, you, like you said, you basically live in the creative process.
The book was, I think, ranks right up there. The album was tough too. That took me 2 years. So the book was probably the hardest, I think, because I had the greatest contrast during that than anything. Yeah. So that's where we are with that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's this one piece in your book that I just, I get attached to content. Like there are just some stories that stick with me. There's some images that stick with me as I'm working through it. And one of the pieces that you wrote about I think you called it the creativity house.
The creativity house. Yeah.
Are you open to sharing a little bit about that? Because I think
Sure.
it's such a powerful way of visualizing this process.
Yes. So I wanted some structure in order to talk to musicians about. And so I thought of your home, your house. It has 4 walls, but I really envision that the basement are the things you come into this life with, all the propensities you come into this life with. So whether you're going to be an artist or musicians very often are bitten with the music bug when they're in junior high school, that sort of thing. But you come in with a series of gifts that are kind of latent because you haven't been able to express them yet. But then as you get older and you begin to realize those things aren't going away, those passions you have, they kind of drive you with their emotional energy up to the first floor, where you get to play in the different rooms. So I really do think as the living room is kind of the place where you get to play. I think the kitchen is paying homage to the body in which you have here on the earth by giving it good food, giving it water, paying attention to it. I think the bathroom is where water moves, where we eliminate old things, where we cleanse, where we wash up, where we reflect in the mirror. It's got a lot of movement. I think of the bedroom as rest. All creativity requires restful periods. You can't plow through. You do much better by resting and even walking or anything like that. So the bedroom kind of represents a place to stop and to reflect and to rest the body, the mind, the spirit. I think there's also a library because of course you have to have a library. Yeah, you gotta have a library. Libraries to me are where you build your skills, where you get resources, where you understand who you are, what you're doing. So the first floor is a powerful place. But if you have dim lights in the rooms, in any of the rooms, you get thrown off, you're not in alignment, you can't finish things, you get detoured, all those sorts of things. So the challenge of an artist is to take care of themselves and to honor every room on the first floor. I consider the attic to be the repertoire of your life. The repertoire of your experiences, all those things that you can pull down to honor the project you're working in, to tell a story about what happened to you, to all those things. So I think a house is the creativity house is a good metaphor. And the other thing that happens on the first floor is I think you have a creativity manager inside of you. I think we all do. That talks to us, and that may be your guide. I mean, you can probably talk about this in any context you want, but there is a voice that says, don't do this now. Do this now. Talk to that person, call that person. You had the dream about so-and-so, maybe you should do that. This manager is really trying to dictate, talk to you, discuss with you, communicate to you about the process of your creativity as you go along. So that's kind of how I like to think of it as it moves.
I love
So
that.
would you say that people who write books spend a lot of time in the bathroom?
In the bathroom, I would say that most artists, most writers definitely stay in the bathroom a lot. Water is universally representative of movement, emotion, therapy, all sorts of things. And statistically, I know that poets, for example, are high on the list of those that, have depressive disorders and all sorts of things. So writers in particular, I know poets.
Yeah. Well, I thought especially because of what the work we do is moving those old stories out, obviously, and into the toilet. But also when you said the reflection part was what hit me. And I was like, oh, that's where we send people to. We put them in the bathroom.
Go to your bathroom.
And sometimes they lock themselves in. Sometimes they get out,
They do, and you have to knock on the door and are you coming out? What's going on? But the reflection, it's an important room, and we use our bathroom every day, all the time. We all do. And so to pay attention to those energies is really important in the process, I think. Sure. Mhm.
One of the things that I've thought about often, especially while working on your project, is how you, like your industry, the music industry. I know you're also a writer and looking at screenplays and all of this, but when I think about you, like the music is the loudest.
Mhm.
And when I think about the industry and I think about my intention for authors and messengers to like really do the inner work so that should they be meant for big stages, should they be meant for huge audiences, like they're ready for that. They've done all the work so that they don't implode. Or and so when I because I've loved music my whole life and I've watched hero after hero after hero
Mhm.
fall apart in the industry. Like they usually just have this huge crash, huge breakdown, huge. So in your way of observing this through understanding the creative process and understanding the creativity house, where do you see creatives really kind of losing their way? If there were like three things that you could tell them, like if you do these three things, you can avoid what happened to this person, and this person, because it's just crushing to see that level of talent and gifting and medicine that they bring to the world just get snuffed out because of their own demons or, whatever the case may be.
There is nothing sadder than seeing a gifted musician, someone we all have loved, and they're gone because of drugs, They're gone because they couldn't pull together those other parts of their life. So we could still appreciate, hear, and learn from their music as, years from now. The Amy Winehouses and Kurt Cobains, and it goes on and on. So this is very important, I think, when I start working with clients, that we address some of these things right away. The two things there are three things. The first two is that we have a big discussion about what kind of faith do they have. And I don't mean from a religious point of view, really, but do you believe in something bigger? Are you an atheist? If you're an atheist, then where does beauty come? I mean, I like to have those conversations because if you're going to immerse yourself into something like this, there are going to be times that you're going to have, be on your knees and look up and ask the question. We all have to go have a vehicle for going inside. And as a writer, all your stuff comes from your inner evolution, as we go. So faith is one. And also addressing self-worth. We all have trauma to different degrees that we've pushed down, that we don't necessarily pay attention to or know about. But as soon as you start working in song work or in writing your book, all those little pieces start coming up. They start floating to the surface. And if you don't have a structure, something if you can't look up and go, where's my intention? This is what I want to do. Help me out. If you can't go there, you can just be derailed altogether. Mm-hmm. And the third thing for musicians in particular are no drugs. Mm-hmm. Can't take it, even drinking. Yes, a social drink now and then. But for those that, there seems to be a connection between creativity and madness and creativity and, substance abuse that will not serve you in a long run. And it makes me very nervous when I see people who are super talented and they're starting down that realm. So I really do like to begin with tools if they're willing to begin to journal, talk through, move before we even begin to write. It's like a prerequisite to the writing process. And then when you get in the writing process, there's even more fodder to use or to figure out or to puzzle piece together to make a finished product. So I think where people get stuck the most, and if I were to name out of those three things, drugs, self-worth, and faith, people get stuck. The self-worth thing is a really big thing. Everybody's comparing themselves to everybody else. You know, they had somebody in their life tell them they couldn't write, or they weren't creative, or some kind of crazy lie like that. And so it's just kind of, you know, really talking through that and giving them a level, neutral playing surface in which to begin to write, and then to have an intention moving forward. That's the way I approach it anyway. Yeah.
And do you find that most people just do not, you know, because this is one of my goals for this podcast and for this book that we're putting out is, you know, to help people realize that they're not the crazy ones. Like, they've been inspired and the stuff has hit the fan and it feels like madness, but that's just because something new is coming and something old has to be, Amandra used the term settled, you know, addressed, transformed, healed, whatever you want to use to describe it. But there's, it pushes against something that needs to be moved in some way. And so do you find that that is just like, these are the three things that everyone thinks like they're the only ones who have this issue? The only ones?
I hear that very often. I hear the same things. Oh, am I too old? Am I, you know, I can't get past this. I have this going on in my life. I've heard that so many times from you. You're in the same club as everyone, including me. So, yeah, so we start there. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing how we, like, I would love to understand that mechanism that's happened. And I'm sure it's a constellation of things, of how we were raised plus how we were socialized in our culture, and like this idea that we have to do it all by ourselves and we can't tell other people when we're struggling, and it makes it very hard.
And the arts in particular are just not appreciated. You know, it's kind of like the teaching profession in elementary school teachers, you know. They have to pay for their own supplies for their kids, you know. We don't have a good supportive belief that being a musician, an artist, a writer is worthy of anything.
Yeah.
But it's everything. But the society doesn't support it. So there, you know, everybody's given those messages from very early, especially with talented ones. Unless they're born into a family where, you know, everybody's artists or writers, or, you know, then they're very fortunate. But that's par for the course, I think. Yeah. So
I wish we could remember, Erin, what is that quote that Renee Beth is always using about like how art leads science by 20 years, and science 10, and science leads business by 10, and business leads education by 10. So there's like this 40-year gap. And the idea that the people who are way ahead, actually, of course they look crazy, right? They're like creative and they have all of these cool new ideas and these different ways of looking at the world that they're trying to deliver, because we're all 40 years behind because of how we're being educated. Like, no wonder these kids don't fit in the system and, you know, end up having really serious trauma happen as a result of them trying to be who they are.
It's a tough road. And then the music industry is also, as you were talking about earlier, the music industry has imploded, and it's like the little fish who eat up the, you know, the big fish who eat up the little fish. There used to be 7 mega companies, and they've all eaten each other up. And so they were down to the independent artist, and, you know, they don't know how to survive. It's, you know, that's on the marketing end. It's one thing to create, but then how you survive. And I find the book industry and the music industry to be really similar in that respect. So you're kind of, you feel alone on your own, and you know, you have to just have an inner source of, you have to develop kind of this inner tenacity. And realize you're going from project to project. Let your project go, and start another one.
Yeah.
If this is your creative engine that keeps you going. For me, that's creativity is everything. So I always have to have projects going. Otherwise I feel just completely not important. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that comparison to the book and author industry, because it is so similar. You know, we've
Mhm.
just been through this huge move where we had all these huge traditional publishers, and that was the only way to ever get published, was to pitch yourself over and over and be rejected over and over, and
Yeah.
you know, try to figure out, what do they want? They want a bigger audience. But now self-publishing is a thing. And
Mhm.
so now you have all these people who are excited about the creative control, but have no idea about the business side. Like, oh shoot, I'm supposed to have a business. Well, yeah, if you want to sell the book, then there's a transaction that has to be recorded.
Mhm.
And then you have to market it and sell it, you know, it's like this whole other skill set.
It is.
That, do you find that skill set is really hard for creatives? The
I
entrepreneurial.
think it's impossible for creative people, musicians. Impossible. They love to create. Their music is so powerful. They come in, and if you can get them, you know, if you can get this good rolling creativity going on, it comes to a big brick wall when it is time to market, because it is another completely different skill set, like you say.
Mhm.
And very few, I would say 1%, are able to do that well, you know.
So what do you suggest? I mean, because I think it is like a personality / wiring thing, right? Creatives they hang out way more on the right side than the left side of their brains.
Right.
And the left side is, you know, organization and more linear. So how do you coach them at that point when they kind of hit the proverbial wall of like, I have this gift, this medicine for the world, and I don't have the skills to get it there? Like, how do you support them through that?
The best way I can do is to make it sound smaller than it probably is. Step 1 and 2, that's all you got to do. Do step 1 and step 2. And then when you do those, let's talk about what else you're going to do next. Because if you present it as this, you know, it feels like the world, like it's a whole different world completely. So that's the way I handle it. I used to set out 6-month plans, a year plan to drop an album, drop, you know, your music, and no one does it. No one wants to do it, or they have their own way. And but I find them really frustrated if there's not a plan of some sort that they can follow. So step 1, 2, and 3 maybe, and that's what we do. If they ask me, if they care. Sometimes they don't care. And sometimes it's a therapy. This has been therapy for them. They're very grateful and that they were able to do it, and they're done. You know, that it's all depends on the person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny. It's so similar
It's
to
funny.
my journey as a coach, is like,
Yeah.
people write for all reasons, and sometimes it turns into the thing that they think it's going to turn into, and other times it's just therapy and they're good and they walk away, and it doesn't
And they walk
matter.
away.
And it doesn't matter that they spent a bunch of money. Like, it was maybe, I was just having this conversation with one of my old clients and friends the other night, sitting down to dinner with her family, and she was like, you know, her husband's like, he's always ribbing me about how much money went into the process of being coached and the retreats and the production, and like, it's an investment. And yet, and she's like, and then I sold 10 books and I was good because I did all of the healing work. She says, I did 20 years of therapy while I was working on this for 18 months. And it's just funny to see where people land, you know, and what they attach the value of the process.
Yeah. Well, that person you're describing is at least aware. That's awesome. That they're aware of what they got out of it and what they're happy with. So
Yeah.
that's evolution right there.
Yeah. The process was hard enough that she had to get aware.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think do you have anything more that you want to share? Any more tips or you know, what do you think this creative process thing is really about for people, for you? What has it really been about?
That's a good question. I want to say to all those people who are listening, who are musicians, who are writers, that you're going to have to get deep into who you are and be like an archaeologist, where you get down there and look at the bones of your life and do some excavating, because you can't get around it. That's what's a little scary, I think, for everyone. This has been a journey inside myself. I always am amazed that I think I'm teaching. I think I have clients that I'm sharing and teaching, but they all come through the door with a new story. And every story they bring somehow mirrors my story. Then we are able to communicate, and we are both evolving with each other. That never ever ends. It's kind of beautiful. I'd say it's really beautiful. And so sometimes I think, maybe I should be giving to, homeless shelters, and I should be giving to all those really wonderful nonprofits that are doing great things. But if we just continue to do the work we do, creating, we are servicing, because we're learning to love ourselves better, and we're learning to give through what our passion and our giftedness is. And that's what I've come to understand. So keep going, everybody. Don't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's next for you, Lisa?
Oh my. Well, I have this random thought, Amanda, that I want to write a fiction book. Oh my God. So I have a great story that I wrote as a screenplay a long time ago. And I go, so the template's there. I just have to understand how to string a sentence together. And that would be helpful to finish the whole thing.
Maybe that's a good question. How do you get yourself unstuck?
By showing up. You got to show up. And if it means you sit there and stare at the wall, then at least you showed up.
Better than nothing.
Yeah, I
Got
give
it.
myself props for showing up all the time, and I have such a rich, mental whatever imagery going on, that if I just sit and I don't know what to do next, I'll get some prompt to move this way and to do that. So unstuck means just showing up a lot and consistently. Another thing musicians don't do very often and easily is to just be consistent. And writers too. We have to always put our butts in the chair, right?
Part of
So
that tenacity. Is that what you're talking about?
say that again.
Part of that tenacity you were talking about?
The tenacity. I really, this is just me. I don't like not finishing something that I really felt passionate about, and I started it and then it's not done. I mean, I may take, a 2-year break, but I have to come back to that and finish it. There's some kind of little thing that says you cannot leave that just hanging. I don't want to, I'm getting up in age now, and I want to be able to feel as if I've finished the things, and my purpose and reason for being here is very important to me at this stage in my life. So I want to make sure that I finish what I'm supposed to do, that I do the work I'm supposed to do. And it's just not for the weak of heart. It really isn't. It's hard, everybody. It's hard. But thank God that we have a structure to live within, and that is morning, afternoon, evening, rest, and morning. If we can put ourselves in that structure and stay there, because every day that happens, then we have a template for which to live our creative life, I think.
As a creative myself, I love being in that creative. I get up early in the morning. I love the quiet hours. I get up, even when I had my kids at home, I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning if I had to get several hours in quiet, because that creative, that inspiration and that creativity is like life to me. And if I am not creating, there's almost like a mild depression, or, It's just, I just don't feel turned on. I don't feel my light's not shining. And yeah, and usually there's a reason why I'm not feeling creative, something's going on that I need to check into. But that is, I get up and show up in my chair anyway with my cup of coffee and sit in the dark anyway, even if I'm not being creative, because I know it could show up at any moment, and I want to be there to catch that thought, that idea, yeah.
That's
very
good.
important.
That's good. You're a morning person too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah. That's
And I do find that there's like these breaks. I'm working on, I've just completed this, like, it's called 10 Reasons to Run from this industry, which doesn't sound like it's good for business, but it was fun to write, like 10 really solid reasons to say no to this path.
yeah.
And then of course there'll be the remedies later. But one of the things that I realized I started this project last year and then I never finished it. And it was like, all these things coming up and these big projects I'm working on, and then team, and then podcast, and then I kind of forgot about it. But I was, we were on our way to California last week for Thanksgiving, and I did not have the juice to do anything else. So I was just looking around on my computer and I found it. And I'll be darned if I didn't get stuck, if I didn't stop writing at the place where I really needed more primary research. Like, I could not have written these last few sections as honestly then as I can now. Like, there was something that happened in that gap where I was like, I'd think about it. Like, I'd see it on my computer and just be like, oh God, when am I ever going to get to that? What is my problem with that? And then I'll be darned, I open it up and I'm like, oh, that's why I was stuck. That's why it didn't happen, because I had to get into all of these experiences that I'm in right now to be able to speak to those things from much more powerful state.
Yeah, timing is a lot of creativity too. Sometimes you're ahead of the timing of something. And it can be either more rest you need or some pauses in between, but sometimes the timing hasn't lined up, I believe, and things around you to support you in that thing. And then, so you just kind of go, or it's just so hard, like you say. My thing is, I know that I've hit a block if I look around the room and I go, I got to clean the floor. That's my thing. Clean the floor. You're like, oh, the floor is so filthy. Let me stop everything and clean the floor, right? And then, oh, the day's over and I didn't do, a damn thing. So that's kind of.
Got the floor clean though.
The floor is clean. The house looks awesome, right?
It's funny you say that, because I was just about to ask you what Erin said, when you get stuck, what do you do to get unstuck? But I'm curious, because that's such a intuitive process it sounds like a lot of your creativity just kind of comes to you. It's divinely inspired. So when you are stuck where nothing is coming for a while, what does that usually trigger for you? What does that tune you into? What is that like? Oh, that must mean that something else is going on here or there, or something's got you out of alignment somewhere.
Yeah, if I'm not being creative, I tend to do what Teddy just described, which is a little mild depression starts to settle in. And depression really to me means you want to, in a layman's terms, if you want something that you can't seem to get. So, and then no matter how you think you can try to get it, you can't get it. And so then what ends up happening is you get a little depression starts, or anxiety starts to come, anxiety being a precursor to depression. So it begins to kind of seep in. So at those moments of feeling stuck, when you are maybe stopping because of fear, because of lack of whatever that case may be, you're confronted at that moment with yourself is really what is happening. And that's why depression is coming, because you'll have to overcome something to get to there. And it's usually feels so unpleasant. So that's why you'd rather stay in your comfort zone, but then you have to fight back and forth with it. I think that's the question you asked.
Yeah, it is. No,
Yeah.
definitely.
So getting unstuck for me means keeping, I just like to keep a regiment of always returning to my paper and pencil. But then if I'm away from it for too long, and there was a period in my life, by the way, the sun's coming in. Hello, sun. There was a period in my life where I forgot music for about 8 years, and I
Wow.
got physically sick. I had a cancer scare. That was in my mid-20s. I didn't have cancer, but I had a scare that sufficiently unlodged that, because I really just said, why am I sick at 24 years old or have this potential scare? And it was because you're not doing your music, Lisa. That's why. And I was like, oh, okay, that's okay. No problem. Let me get busy, so I
Wow.
can be alive. So I think when depression hits us, and it's very common for creative people, that it's just asking you, you're feeling hopeless. That's all depression is. I'm feeling hopeless because there's some things I want in my spirit that I feel I'll never get, no matter what I seem to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there is an answer. There is an answer to that. You have to be willing, to be that, dig up the bones. You have to, and it takes a great amount of courage, frankly, to do that.
They feel like spells. They feel
Like what?
like spells. Like we fall under a spell for a little bit. I just worked myself out of one.
Right.
And it's funny because I have like different avenues of expression. So writing is the one I never force. I don't give myself structure or discipline around, but I definitely made myself show up at the studio and go through the motions and make it to training and do my other avenues, even though I was like, I don't want to do this right now. But showing up is it's the majority of the battle.
It is the majority of the battle. It really is. And it's like you say, it's really hard to do that. But it's much better. I don't know which feels worse, forging ahead when you don't want to with every fiber of your being, or being depressed. I mean, which
Right.
one? They're both sides of the teeter-totter,
Yeah.
So I'd rather be in the let me figure this out mode, and go inside and figure out my first, second, third step. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, I don't know about you, but I want to hear more about this novel that's next for
Oh
you.
my.
Can you give us like a little teaser synopsis?
It's called The Ladybug Exchange. It's about 4 women who meet on New Year's Eve. They're friends. They pull cards, tarot cards, and each of the quarters of the next year are about each woman's story. And they evolve together, and they have their separate drama, and it ends December 31st of the following year, with all of them coming to have evolved to a new place completely, based on the card and the guide that they were given at the beginning. So it's a very Netflix movie, but so I'm writing it like that because I'd rather it be a movie at some point. But I thought, wow, what a good way for me to begin, the novel process.
That
Yeah,
sounds
so
fun.
that's where we are now. And the exchange is called Ladybug because they actually have a ladybug bracelet that one girl gives to the next as the quarters of the year move on. So, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for
Oh,
being
so much
with us
fun.
today. I'm so glad you felt it was fun. I know that it was so valuable for me to hear everything that you shared, and hopefully for our listeners. So thank you so much for being here. And I know that people are going to want to connect with you, find out more about what you're doing. So how do they do that?
So you can go to livingcrazybrave.com, or you can go to loveandlaughtermusic.com, and all our numbers are there, and you can get all our information there, and all contact information is there. You can see what our services are, and what we're up to, what we're doing, and all kinds of stuff there.
Yeah. Amazing work. Amazing work coming out of your studio.
Well, thank you, Amanda, for letting me chat. And
Yeah.
thank you guys for being here. That's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Great being with you, Lisa.
So fun.
I feel like I've been waiting to meet you for a very long time. It's so nice.
I
to meet
know.
you.
I think so.
I've
I
heard
was
your
like,
name in the circle forever, and I'm like, who is this songwriter I need to meet?
I know. And I didn't realize, Amanda, that Alyssa was your sister until just like right now. I was like, oh, that's her. Because I've heard you too, about your name a lot too. Yeah.
It's funny.
Good to meet you.
You too.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our listeners for listening to this episode of Sips of Story and Sanity, and our viewers. If you like what you heard or watched, please consider subscribing, maybe leave us a review, maybe share your favorite little tidbit of wisdom of Lisa's from today. And you can also find more details about our upcoming collaborative book, which Lisa is in. You Can't Make This Story Up. What if it's all happening for us at truetointention.com. So that's it for today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Keep
Okay.
going. What happens?
So
when-
here's what we need to do. You know, Amanda's the book and Lisa's the music, and we need to have them trade places. And Amanda does the recording.
I would get the short end of that stick because I know Lisa has writing chops, like she could kill it over here, but I would be totally worthless on the music. I'd be like, Teddy, come help me out.
And I couldn't coach anybody to write a book. Are you kidding me? I couldn't
But
even.
think of the adventure you guys would have if all of a sudden, you know, there's this car accident or whatever, you know, and you switch places.
Oh,
Game
yeah.
show? Should we do a game show too, Lori, while we're at it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, when we have our publishing house, we get people, they write their books, and then we get Lisa to turn it into a movie on
There you
Netflix.
go.
With
Right.
There you go.
That's just the next step.
Did
That's
you
the
hear,
next step.
did
15
you hear what
years.
he just did?
Yeah.
We're just gonna have a publishing house.
So
And then
just so
we're
you
just
know,
gonna-
True to intentions, right?
Right.
Setting that intention.
Publishing house, you guys, do that thing. We're all there. We'll be writing under contract, and we'll be like finishing stuff quickly. We will. It'll happen.
You're saying it, but literally it's probably happening.
That's good.
I say probably, like that's my last bit of resistance going up. Like my last, like their resistance is futile here. I
Clawing
know
at
it.
And you know, we've considered having a label here for the longest. It's the same idea.
Mm.
What keeps you from doing it?
Because I have to hire staff, and you have to start with no money. That's why.
Mm. Oh, it's
Staff,
a big
you know,
investment.
But yeah, it's an investment to
Yeah.
hire someone to do that. And I'm not sure labels are relevant as anymore in that way. They're not money producing like they used to be.
Mm.
So I'm not sure how you can make money at that either. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
So
We're-
Amanda, she didn't give you a scapegoat.
she
Sorry.
did not. She did not
Yeah.
because
think
I
that was
have.
actually the last sign that you needed. She just like cherry on top of the dam that was right there.
Right.
I have
Yeah.
clients who are asking for it.
Yes. Well, that's exciting though. Oh my gosh, a
It
publishing house.
is. It
That's
is.
And I figured out the name, right?
No, that was me.
No, don't
Wait
you
a
dare.
sec.
Don't you
I-
dare
no,
right now.
I
Wait, no,
did
no,
it.
no. You were listing it
I don't
off.
even wanna
That's
hear
right,
it.
That's right. You were listing. Wait, no, but then. Wait, who did it though? Was it
Erin?
you listing it off and then she said Saved by
Erin,
Story? And then
I said it.
did Liz say
That
it?
was mine.
I
Are
think
you
she might
taking
have
your-
said
This
it.
is where we're
Oh, okay.
glad we're the friends
I
and
think
All right, I'll give it to you.
We were all like, because we had lunch with a client who it would spark the conversation, and then Aaron and I were like jumped into how do we actually like make this happen, what needs to happen. And then we got home and I was like, okay, mission statement and logo and name. And then we started all trying to pitch out names. And I think we all really loved Saved by Story.
Stay by story.
Saved.
Saved by Story.
Saved by story.
Saved by Story Publishing.
SBS, almost like SOS.
It kind of looks like that. Yeah. Kind of feels like that too.
That's how you feel when you're writing. Oh my God, that's the best. The presentation we give when you join, you sign on with us. All right. You see, this is intentional. This is how you're gonna feel. Oh my God.
Good, awesome.
That's that bathroom section she was talking about.
Oh yeah, I
Right.
realized Lisa needs to be part of our bathroom breakthrough story because she has this whole piece about the bathroom and how important it is. And do you remember that? I don't know if you ever read that blog that I wrote about the stuff hitting the fan and how you need wipies.
I did. I do remember. Yes, I remember. Yes.
I was like, oh yeah, that's just so fitting. We should definitely do something about that.
Right. That's
Mhm.
cool. That's good. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much. And I have a few extra questions for you.
Okay.
Because we're putting together a little promo reel, if you don't mind staying for a few more minutes.
Okay. Sure. No
And
problem.
then we'll just say goodbye to everyone else. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
guys. Mwah.
Love you.
That was
See you,
fun.
Lisa.
Good to
It's
see
fun.
you.
Bye, Lori.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
I've got all this weirdness in my face. Okay, there we go.
There.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, in an
Mhm.
effort to normalize upside down and this experience for people, we're kind of asking everyone the same questions, and then we're going to ask the question and have everyone's answers in there. So we'll just do it like rapid fire, just whatever comes
Okay.
to you first. So upside down and the senses of it. So what does it look like, sound like, feel like, smell, or taste like, whatever comes up for you?
Being upside down. Fear. Fright.
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Oh, start over again. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Okay. Fear, stuck, losing my mind, lost, and questioning who I am.
My go-to coping strategies or distractions include
Coping strategies are food, chocolate. Can't drink liquor anymore, so that's okay. But distractions are movies and reverberating in my head on one thing for hours.
the structures and support that help me the most.
Calendar, family, talking through a problem, and letting go.
The process of editing, polishing, getting feedback, prepping for your launch was full of
Pain. Pain. Did I say pain? The hardest part to me is that, but it's for purpose and intention. So it's got pain with purpose.
the process of putting myself and my work out there to be visible is full of what?
Vulnerability, but it's all okay now. Doesn't matter. What matters is that I finished.
I used to think success as a messenger was, but now I've realized that success looks like.
I used to think success as a messenger was a lot of money. But what it looks like is a lot of joy, a lot of high frequency flying and feeling good.
Love it. My favorite phase of this process is
Thinking up a new idea.
my biggest ahas and breakthroughs happen when.
My biggest ahas and breakthroughs happen when I keep going and I'm brave.
The phase I resisted and hated the most was what?
Oh, these are hard. Ask me that again.
The phase I resisted and hated the most.
The middle, the messy middle.
I wish I had known at the beginning.
To love myself more completely.
As a result of the work that I did at True to Intention and on my book, I am, or my life is.
Fuller, richer, more accomplished, and happier.
I wondered if I made a mistake in hiring Amanda the first time she
Sent me back with lots of red lines slashed through pages and pages of text.
They call me the hacker for a reason.
The hacker.
Working with Amanda is like
A breath of fresh air, clarity, a shoulder to lean on, and a person with an answer.
what are some of the nicknames you've given to Amanda at various phases? Tell the truth.
I think I called you at one point. What the hell is she talking about? That was your name for a minute. What is she saying? What is she saying? That was the only thing. What? I think your nickname was what?
That's perfect. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, good. Thank God. Okay, good. All right.